Good morning, everybody. So today's scripture readings present two stories to us, right? The story of the first man and woman in the garden, and then we have the story of Jesus in the desert. And there is much to be explored and written and said about the contrast and similarities between these two stories. Between the garden and the desert, between the first humans and Jesus, between the similarities and the temptations and the choices that they made. Now, I want to approach today's readings from the perspective of two human traits, two human qualities. Self-gratification, and on the other side, asceticism, a certain sense of detachment. Think of the self-gratification of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Plenty. And then think about the self-denial, the sacrifice, the asceticism of Jesus in the sparse desert. Especially, I would like to reflect on the value and need of asceticism in our contemporary world. If Lent is a time of conversion, then I believe asceticism is critical. So here are my 3 points. And let me begin with contemporary living and contemporary spirituality. And contemporary living, how it affects contemporary spirituality. Contemporary living feels like an experiment in self-gratification. I'm just giving you 3 simple examples. Think about your phones now, right? We all have 5G, and if you are 4G or 3G, you feel like you live in the primitive times when the wheels were not invented yet. Okay. Now, how much faster do we need information to be accessible to us? But in 2030, we will have 6G. The problem is that the denser concentration of 5G cell towers that emit hazardous and harmful carcinogenic radio frequency radiation is the price that human beings have to pay. But it looks like we are willing to do that, right? Because we need things now instantaneously when we want it. Artificial intelligence. The tech community has warned us about the threats of artificial intelligence. Massive unemployment because of automation of jobs. Imbalanced data being fed into algorithms leading to what they call fake news and information. AI-powered warfare is going to make today's warfare look like video games. But will the risk make us resist the temptation to adopt technology despite its risk? Finally, something that affects us on a daily basis, the grocery store. They carry now everything from toilet paper to cars, and every possible produce in and out of season. It's unsustainable. However, it's symbolic of people who we simply must get our every need met now. Again, as I said, it's unsustainable. We cannot be self-gratifying, endless and limitless consumers without hurting creation, without hurting ourselves, without destroying the planet and our children's future. But this mindset, this contemporary lifestyle, also affects our spirituality. Often we expect life and spirituality to be like online shopping. You click a button, we have the results. We expect life's complexities to be resolved like home delivery. God becomes like the customer service representative to whom we go or we call when we have issues. We pick and choose what is convenient to us in our faith tradition and discard what makes demands on us. We expect prayers to be answered instantaneously and seamlessly like 5G or 6G. And when it doesn't happen, we get frustrated. We cry like children who cannot now play on their video games. Now, the garden into which Adam and Eve were placed was a garden of plenty. But it was not meant to make them self-gratifying, mindless consumers. There was this tree from which they were not supposed to eat. They had to practice a certain amount of asceticism. Yes, everything is available. Should I? Or should I practice a certain amount of detachment, self-control, sacrifice, asceticism? We do not have to consume endlessly simply because we can. My second point, let's talk about the asceticism of Jesus. The story of Jesus in the desert is a story of asceticism. Jesus enters the desert by choice. Remember, he was not powerless in the desert. As Son of God, Jesus had the ability to transform even the harshest desert into a garden. Jesus had the power, as the devil said, to change stone into bread. But he chose not to give in to the temptation, even though he could. He does not succumb to the temptation of fame, wealth, power, and pleasure. He does not give in to self-gratification. By rejecting the temptations and practicing asceticism, sacrifice, self-denial, Jesus teaches us to give God God's place in human lives. He teaches that fame, faith, wealth, and power may have their place, but they cannot consume us. He teaches us that all we have and can accomplish must never make us forget our origin and destiny. That self-gratification through fame and wealth and power and pleasure will not save us. These things are not going to save us. Our origin, our destiny, and salvation lie in God. Jesus' asceticism teaches us that. Folks, self-denial, sacrifice, and asceticism are important to be a people of faith and character and holiness. There is a value in not giving into every whim. There is a value in not becoming endless, mindless, and self-gratifying consumers. There is power in asceticism. And that's my third point, the need and the power of asceticism. Both self-gratification and asceticism have implications. Self-gratification made Adam and Eve lose sight of God's will, of God's vision, and God's plan. They simply lost sight. They focused on, at that point, fulfilling their need. The consequence is humanity's sinful state leading to death and destruction. Moreover, self-gratification made Adam and Eve very selfish and self-centered people. Remember, after the first sin, they refused to take responsibility and they blamed each other. Self-gratification destroyed their character, because self-gratification destroys the virtues that make us human. Patience, perseverance, endurance, fortitude, faith, hard work, diligence. But the greatest implication of self-gratification is that it does not prepare us to deal with the complexities and uncertainties of human life. In other words, when real challenges come our way, we crumble, because otherwise in life we are constantly used to fulfilling our needs. On the contrary, Jesus' asceticism, self-denial, and sacrifice helped him to keep his eyes on God's will, God's vision, and his own mission. His asceticism helped us to focus on human redemption. It helped him to live a very selfless life. His focus was not fulfilling his own need, but actually being at the service of humanity. But the greatest implication of Jesus' asceticism is that when human redemption was at stake, he did not succumb to weakness. And folks, just imagine if he did. Human redemption is at stake, And only if Jesus had given into his weakness and to self-gratification, human redemption would not have happened. It is his asceticism in the desert that prepared him for the cross. When we practice asceticism in daily life, then when real issues and challenges come, we don't succumb. We find ourselves stronger. So I'm proposing, and this is my conclusion, I'm proposing that we enter Lent in a spirit of asceticism. And those of you who are in RCIA and are candidates and catechumens, this period from now until we are received into the church or baptized at East is called the period of enlightenment and purification. So this is a very special moment for you particularly. But I'm inviting all of us to enter Lent in a spirit of asceticism. Let's take our ordinary practices. We do some simple things, right? Like not eating meat on Friday, abstaining from something that we've given up. These are all good things. And don't approach this just as something we do, but think about it as developing a certain asceticism. Never underestimate the power of small daily acts of asceticism. For example, think about how much time we spend on our phones and what happens when something takes more than 5 seconds to download. What's happening, right? And think about how much time we spend on our phones and gadgets versus how much time we spend in prayer. Taking someone out for a cup of coffee, or caring about the lonely in our nursing homes. Think about every time you go to an office or to a bank, do you find a candy sitting on the counter? Do we really need that, really? Do we need all that sugar? How often, because it is there, I must consume? Think about the asceticism in our speech, resisting filthy talk, gossip, hate speech, taking God's name in vain. Look at the things in your home. Do we really need everything we have bought? The next time you go into the grocery store, think about the impact of buying things that are not in season, or of things that are produced unsustainably. Should I consume it? And I'm proposing that we don't do this just for Lent, but that we adopt a spirit of asceticism as a way of life, so that we might convert ourselves from being self-gratifying, endless and mindless consumers into people who care about God and God's will, about other people and the impact that our lifestyle has on other people and on creation. Every Eucharist is a reminder of Jesus' self-denial, his sacrifice, his asceticism. It really is, because human redemption happened because of this sacrifice and self-denial of Jesus. So may our participation in the Eucharist make us approach life with the mind and the heart of Jesus. People of God said,